Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's watch.
Other or to me. But I'm still answering to them. Once again, more polygamy, double standard.
Well,
I mean, I think you think it's silly.
no, I don't. I just don't know how to reconcile it because I can't leave my boys out hanging
They're
out.
adults. Bye-bye.
Listen, I've been sympathetic to this situation with Janelle.
There's been a lot of that sentiment that I don't think I've highlighted because they've been dispersed, that he's like, look, you got to choose, sister wife, between me and your kids. I mean, he hasn't said that directly, but it's pretty baked into his approach. And we just heard it in a very stark contrast right there, that he is explicit. I mean, Janelle's really trying to work with him here, and she's being very reasonable. She's not raising her voice like he is. She's not being insulting like he is. She's saying, think about the position I'm in. I have kids who are older and living with me and struggling and not following your rules. But they're following a lot of the rules, just not as strictly as your rules, because they work and one of them has a girlfriend and he can't live without seeing her. And so they're doing a lot, but they're just not as strict as you are. Can we work something out here? And Janelle even said, well, what do you think about the girlfriend moving into my house so that she's isolated for a couple of weeks from everyone else, and then she can hang out with the family, anyway. And he wouldn't entertain that, wouldn't even begin to have a conversation around that, because, you got to get creative if you're going to try to work it out. But anyway, we just saw him say, like, yeah, your older boys, they're adults, meaning 18 and up, and bye-bye. One, those are your kids. Two, you're asking a mother, Janelle, a parent of those kids, to what? What's bye-bye? What? Yikes. Double yikes. Triple yikes. I am, I guess, vicariously hurt, or it's touching on something in me. What's it touching? I guess it's just, I think it's a buildup of a lot of things that's been happening with him. And I think typical, I'm trying to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I think I am done doing that for him based on what he just said and everything else. But that he just said, they're adults. Bye-bye. No. Why? No. On behalf of Janelle and her kids, no. Why? No. Janelle would be a horrible mother to do that. What? Why would anyone want to do that? Why? So, okay. And why would you want to be with Janelle if she did do that? Why would you want to be with a fellow parent who would just say, hit the road, Jack, to their kids because they are trying to make things work, I don't know the full story, but based on what they're saying. But regardless, it's your kids, man. Like, what? But there must be something personal to me, right? It must be some personal pain that is being triggered. I mean, not my dad. My dad never did anything like this. My mom never did anything like this. What is it? You know what I think it is? I have been a therapist a long time, and in the beginning of my career in particular, I came across a lot of clients. There were, when you're starting out in your career, you don't have those long, by the time you get 20 years into your career, if you've had the same private practice for a long time, it's not uncommon to not accept new clients for months because all your clients have been established as long-term clients. It's sort of like if over a 10-year span of time, and the first year you get X amount of new clients. Well, some of those, let's say 1 out of 40 clients will be long-term, meaning 10, 20 years or something. So in that first year, by the end of the year, you have like 2 or 3 clients who are long-term, but you have a lot of other clients that are short-term. And the average I remember hearing about at the beginning of my career was that people go to therapy for an average of 5 sessions. So there's a lot of people that just go for 1 or 2 sessions, which is fine. And then each year you acquire more long-term clients. So by the time you're 20 years in, all your clients are long-term clients, if that makes sense. Anyway, so when I was starting my career, as with other therapists, you just grind through a lot of intakes and new clients and people coming for one session, but you don't know that, so you're putting all your heart and energy into it, which is fine. And there were a lot of clients that I'm thinking about right now where there was a father who was acting like him, and I at first would hold on to my differentiation level and would be professional and hold it together. But over time, I would start to lose it, and there was this one time when I'll never forget this, that I was talking with this dad, and I had pulled him aside one-on-one because he was acting like this, is I guess one way to put it. And I was I had tried to convince him to not be that way, and I was defending the kids and the wife, and I was believing, I had hope that I could get through to him, and I was trying to get to the core of the matter. What is it? What's the fear here? What's the hurt? What's the pain? Let's get to the humanity. And nothing was working. And back then, in that space, in that work that I was doing, it was contract work. I had the luxury of being flexible with my session time. I would allocate a number of hours to every family, so I was able to go over, right? And I think I was talking to him for 2 or 3 hours, and at a certain point, it was getting so annoying, and he was so rigid, and he was being so unreasonable, and he was being such a fucking dick that I started to judge him. And I also started to think, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work with him anymore because he's not making use of therapy. It wasn't really his choice to do it in the first place. And this will be I said in my, and I almost never do this, and maybe I was more prone to doing this back then, but I resolved internally that I wouldn't necessarily refuse to meet with him moving forward, but I definitely wasn't going to encourage it. And I thought right now might be the last 5 minutes that I'm ever going to talk to him. So fuck it. I'll just let him have it. I'm going to take off my kid gloves, and I'm just going to let him have it because he needs to be told. I've been beating around the bush, and I've been trying to get him to play ball, and I've been nice, and I've been professional. I've been talking like a therapist, and fuck it. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to let him have it. And I let him have it. I just started yelling at him, and I was like, you're being a dick. Your standards are too high. You're ridiculous. You're being abusive, at least to your oldest boy. At the very least, you're ruining any sort of relationship. You're making him feel terrible about himself. He's holding it together for the most part, with no thanks to you and your attitude, and you're beating him down, criticizing him, and making him feel stupid all the time in school and life and everything. And in the future, when he has problems with alcohol or he goes through a divorce, he has you to thank for that. So, I don't think I said something like that, but, I was raising my voice, and I was yelling, and we, I think in my head anyway, we eventually, the two of us were standing up, just yelling at each other. And he was a big guy, he was, he had a job where it was a very physical job, and he was a very physical guy and he was aggressive. And I was just like, let's go, let's do this. And it was wrong what I was doing. And I mean, a part of me was thinking maybe I can get through to him this way. I don't know. Maybe he'll think about this a week from now and a seed will be planted for some. I was thinking that, but I was also just giving in to my anger, and I had been in a long session, maybe after a long day, I don't know. And maybe by that point in my career, I felt like I had the clout to get away with it. If he made a complaint, I figured, I've established myself well enough that I'll wiggle out of it, or I don't know, something. I don't know. And what happened was, it was obviously contentious, and he started raising his voice, and he's yelling back at me. And then I was like, okay, well, that's it. Session over. I'm leaving, because this was in home. I was actually at his workplace, and I said, I don't have any interest in talking with you anymore. I don't think there's any use to us meeting in the future. So I'll continue to meet with the rest of your family. I'll do what I can, but that's it. And I from my memory, I said something like, well, okay. And I can't remember exactly how it happened, but we ended up hugging. And it was this sort of switch in mood for the two of us where, I've experienced this in other masculine spaces where you come to blows even, or you're extremely hostile in each other's face. And then there's like an endorphin rush or something. And then the two of you will hug, maybe cry, which has happened to me in other situations, not with clients, but, and, with like I'm thinking of in college, there was a friend of mine and we were, nose to nose. And then it just suddenly hit us that we were yelling at each other, and we both burst into tears and hugged. And so it was kind of like that. And I thought, well, that was kind of weird that we hugged, but whatever, I'm done. And I walked out. Well, I don't know exactly how this happened, because it was many, many years ago, but he hired me as his therapist. And I worked with him individually and in the family for months, years after that. And he told me that I, affected him greatly in that session when I was yelling at him. I got through to him. And I thought, wow, okay. So I took a gamble, I guess, and it worked. And he had a lot of trauma, obviously. And he would cry every session about midway through in response to some probing question that I would have about his own traumas or his own vulnerability or his own sadness or his own sense of being abandoned or his own soft underbelly. And he would burst into tears and he'd say, oh, you do this. And he was a very macho, tough guy. And he'd be like, oh, Kirk, you do this to me every time. And sometimes I'd cry with him. And it was a really meaningful relationship for both of us, I think. And I went through a lot of that, and it didn't always end well. I dealt with racist fathers, and I dealt with abusive fathers. It was frustrating. And as a professional, I would just have to suck it up. And I would, pretty much every other instance, I would hold it together, and I would go home and scream into my pillow or something. And so I think that's what was triggered. He, with that gesture of like, bye-bye, just brought all that back for me. I continue to learn things about myself, that happens a lot. So duly noted, self, I hear you. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Regarding access to therapy, one of the barriers is that insurance companies can be difficult to work with. And this can make it difficult for clients, but it also means that for therapists to be able to pay off their student loans and pay their bills, they often have to charge fees that many clients cannot afford. There are various proposed solutions, but until those measures are established, we have to figure out other ways to help people to get the help that they need. Well, one of those solutions that we have available today is BetterHelp. In my neck of the woods, therapy can cost as much as $300 per session or more. But with BetterHelp, clients can save, on average, up to 50%. Also, I often talk about the need to shop around because it's critical that you and your therapist have a strong relationship. BetterHelp makes it a lot easier to shop around because you can easily switch therapists if you need to. So, your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
And I tolerated a lot for a very long time until I realized that I was being lied to or deceived. And at that point was when I sort of lost my patience with it. I'm like, you need to just make the boys move out.
When you're 21, karmically, I have given you all you need. You got a good car, you go get a job, here's some cash, bye.
I'm on the verge of...
Another thing that there are some hints of, and I haven't shown all the clips that hint at this, is that he was treated poorly when he turned 18. I haven't heard anything along those lines, and it's complete speculation, total speculation. We have merch that says that, I think. and I've seen that a lot. When, there will be good parents, loving parents, and then a switch just is turned when the kid turns of a certain age, and then you're like, what's happening? And then you learn that the parent, when they turned that age, they went through something very difficult with their parents. And I think he even said something along those lines, like, he talked about going on a mission and the sacrifices that he had to make for that. And maybe there were other kinds of sacrifices, I don't know. But, it's not hard to imagine that his father would be maybe a little rigid and draconian with, okay, dude, you're an adult now, so bye-bye, figure it out for yourself, you're on your own, kid, whatever, who knows. But it's not out of the realm of possibility, and so that could be a factor here. For people that go through that, they can bury all those feelings and identify with the abuser to some extent, but also it's just a model for the way you're supposed to parent. If you don't critically look at the way you were parented and pick the good parts and reject the bad parts in a very systematic way, at least to identify the goods and the bads, then you're going to just repeat the bads and the goods, but the bads too. And so I think there's a possibility that he was rejected and treated like he didn't matter, or the way he felt it, the way he interpreted it himself when he was of that age. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened to him. It doesn't excuse it.
I'm going to have Gabriel and Garrison move out of the house. I'm sorry, here's the problem. Janelle's name is on the lease, so I can't evict them.
Now, my dad sent me out with a car that I earned.
I know.
And $50.
He's like, well, my dad kicked.
Sometimes I amaze myself, or at least I'm amazed at the coincidence of him saying something that is confirmation of my total speculation directly after. It's so eerie when that happens. Sometimes you think, is it some sort of energy, and which isn't, of course, sensible. But yeah, okay. So we're just hearing a little detail there, but that sounds like a confirmation in part, at least, of what I was saying earlier.
We'll tell Dad that we did it.
No,
Because I don't give him the piece of mind.
No, that doesn't work.
That works for
You
me.
can never do that, honey.
Dad wants to play stupid games. We can play along.
You'd be lying to
We
Dad.
got Gabe and I got
I'm
jobs.
sorry, it's been 8 months since I've been able to hang out with my dad. Of course I'm gonna rebel a little. Like, I'm tired of it. I'm freaking tired of it.
Gabriel has always felt like he and his dad had a pretty close relationship, so he feels this like rejection.
All right, so to catch you up, Janelle is talking with some of her kids, the older ones, 2 of the boys and a daughter, about what Kody wants, and she's doing her best, and she's not throwing Kody under the bus. I mean, she's preserving her own opinion to some extent, but she's, I think, doing Kody a solid by trying to convince them and presenting it in a way that might be helpful to Kody. And the one boy is being the most vocal about, like, what? That's too much. And then he says, I haven't been able to hang out with my dad for 8 months. I didn't realize it was that long. So that makes me think, because I've been wondering when this is being filmed, and I think the beginning of the season was like in October, so it sounds like maybe they're not, because they're coming up on Thanksgiving. Anyway. And then I was like, oh, that sounds like that one son is hurt. He's not saying that, but he's animated. I think he's hurt that he feels rejected. And then Janelle chimes in and says that son is close, has always been close to Kody and feels rejected. Yeah, just because he is. And Kody is rejecting. I've been saying from the beginning, if Kody wanted to do everything that he's doing, he could have all the rules, and he could refuse to have contact in a way that would risk exposure or infecting each other. He could do all those things and still have contact with his kids. He can call them the phone every day. He can do Zoom every day. He could go over and hang out outside every day. There's all sorts of things he could be doing, and he's not doing that. So proof's in the pudding, message received.
So that's a really big conversation. Let's bring it
Then
down.
let's bring Dad here, and I'll yell at him.
Okay, I'm trying here.
Listen, Dad's gonna be a child about this?
No.
He's not.
Kody, then
He's
he
not.
can be. If he wants to tear
If you're
apart
gonna
the
say that
family,
about Dad, though, then you have to acknowledge that we're being childish too.
we are.
Okay, yes, everybody is angry on both sides. Can we figure out what...
Okay, interesting. So the other boy says, if he's going to be childish about this, then whatever. And then the other kid says, well, if you're going to say that Dad's being childish, then we have to admit we're being childish too. So that was an interesting little dynamic there.
works
We can.
for the holidays.
Dad can figure out how not to tear apart his family over something so stupid.
Okay, I don't think we have to go to extremes. Okay, guys, look,
Mom, it's been 9 months.
I'm emotional too. Okay.
Someone could have gotten pregnant and had a baby in the time that we have.
Yeah, and Janelle's trying real hard and doing she's being a real team player with Kody right now. Even though Kody has been treating her pretty poorly, really poorly. So Janelle's, really going out of her way here.
Haven't seen Dad.
All of them are talking about how I've not been around all year long, and that's not true. I've been at these places like every month.
All that's in question right now.
Ooh, every month, once a month. And from Christine's description, he comes over, he's on his phone, and then he leaves before even sleeping there that night. So, yeah, once a month. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching and reacting if you want to. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.